This video is going to explain the relationships between perimeter, area, and side lengths of similar polygons. So one thing that you guys need to remember is that perimeter is proportional to the side lengths. And we'll see an example of how we can sort of just treat the perimeter like a side length. But for area, it's not. Do not treat it like a side length. It's not proportional. What I mean by proportional is if I have to multiply an object by 2 to get a similar object, I can multiply its perimeter by 2 and get the perimeter of the bigger object. I cannot multiply its area by 2 and get the area of the bigger object. So it's not proportional. So my best advice is to find the lengths of the sides of your similar objects and then find the area using the formulas for area of different polygons. For perimeter, let's say I am looking at picture frames and I have two similar objects. We'll test them and make sure that they are similar. But I have two pictures. I think that they're similar, and I'm trying to find picture frames. What is the amount of wood that is needed for my smaller picture frame and for my bigger picture frame? So first, let's test and make sure that these are similar rectangles. So they are rectangles, and I should have given right angles. I didn't, but we can go ahead and say that they're rectangles. That being said, not all rectangles are similar. They're not quite like squares, and they don't have that special property. So we need to test the sides. Again, I have inches to feet. I'm going to want to turn those feet into inches just so that it's really clear and there's no mistakes can be made. So 1 foot, that's 12 inches. 1.5 feet, and a foot is 12 inches. So I have 12 inches for the 1, the 0.5 I get 6. Add that together, I'm going to get 18 inches for my 1.5 feet. Now let's test it. 4 inches over 12 inches. Is that equal? That's my question. Is that equal to 12 inches? I'm sorry, I see. To 6 inches over 18 inches. Okay, lots of ways to set up these proportions. Again, in the previous video, I showed you all those different ways. Let's go ahead and reduce. Will these reduce to the same thing? 4 and 12, that will go to 1/3. 6 and 18, will that go to 1/3? Yes. 6 goes into itself once and into 18 3 times. They both reduce to 1/3. 1/3 is a scale factor here, and it's the scale factor going from my larger picture to my smaller, and 3 is a scale factor going from my smaller picture to my larger. Now, can I set up a proportion with one pair of corresponding sides and the perimeters? The answer is yes. Let's say I want to find the perimeter of these objects. Because I gave you the side lengths and told you it was a rectangle, you could find all of the side lengths and then find the perimeters. We'll do that. And we'll test that to see if I knew the perimeter of one, could I just jump to finding the perimeter of the next without finding all the side lengths? So let's find the perimeter of this small one. This is also going to be 4 inches. This is also going to be 6 inches. The perimeter is I add up all the way around, and I'm going to get 10 plus 10. The perimeter here is 20 inches. What is the perimeter here? 12 inches, 18. This is going to be 12 inches. This is going to be 18 inches. I got 30 plus 30 is going to be 60 inches. And again, you see that that's proportional. I need to multiply 20 by 3 in order to get 60. Or I'd have to multiply 60 by 1/3, which is really dividing it by 3, to get 20. So our scale factor works here. It's proportional. So what I could have done is if I told you about my small picture frame that one of the sides was 4 inches and that the perimeter was 20 inches. And I asked you, what's the perimeter of the bigger one? Only knowing that that corresponding side with 4 was 12 inches. So I can set it up where all I have is 4 inches over 12 inches. So these are my corresponding sides, and now I can set that equal to my corresponding perimeters. That would be 20 inches for my smaller one, and let's call it X for now, for the perimeter of this larger picture. Before I can go ahead and multiply and divide. Before I do so, I'm going to reduce. This is going to become 1/3. You'll notice I could have skipped a step here. I could have just set it equal to the scale factor. I think it's a good practice to set it equal to the corresponding sides because there will never be a question about which scale factor to use. So I have 1/3 is going to be equal to 20 inches over x. 20 times 3, multiply across both sides. 20 times 3 is 60 inches is going to be equal to 1 times x. So again, that matches with the perimeter that we did find when we found all the sides and added them all up. I could have skipped adding them all up by just setting them equal here. And sometimes you won't be given enough information to find all the side lengths. Maybe I was told that maybe I was just told that they're similar. So, and I didn't know the measure of this side here or the measure of this side. So I couldn't have found that perimeter. This way I can just find the perimeter of my new one without having to try to figure out what those side lengths are. With area, again, it's a little bit different. So for this example, I want to compare scale factor. I want to find scale factor and compare it to the perimeter and compare those two with the area. So up until here, we're going to sort of practice what we just did in this video, and then we're going to jump into area. I'm given 2 squares. I know these are squares because I can read these tick marks and understand that all the sides are congruent. I know from a previous video that all squares are similar, so I don't really need to know any more information here. I got 2 squares, they're similar. Done there. I got 8 inches here, which means all of these are 8 inches. To find my scale factor, all I have to do is find a set of corresponding sides. Corresponding sides, I got 8 inches, and I have 4 inches. So my scale factor, this would reduce to 2. Always, I have 2 scale factors. What if I put the 4 on top? 4 over 8 is 1/2. My scale factors will always be reciprocals of each other. So I have 2 scale factors here, 2 and 1/2. The 2 means that I need to multiply this one by 2 to get that one. The 1/2 means I have to multiply this one by 1/2 to get that. Scale factor. Now let's find the perimeter of each. What if I told you that the perimeter of my small one, let's find it, 4, 8, 12, 16. So the perimeter here is 16 inches. P equals 16 inches. What's my perimeter there? I can set up a proportion without having to add up all those sides. So let me set up a proportion between the side lengths and the perimeters. I'm trying to find the perimeter here. Let's call it P for now, and that's what I'm trying to find. My perimeter of this one's 16, so I'm going to do 4 inches over its corresponding side is 8 inches is equal to 16 inches, the perimeter of this one, over P. Now before I multiply, I can reduce. This becomes 1, this becomes 2. That's familiar for my scale factor. Now I have 16 times 2, which is 32 inches, is going to be equal to 1 times P, P. This perimeter is 32 inches. So again, if I look at 32 and 16, I can see that 32 is twice 16. It matches with my scale factor. They're proportional. Now let's take a look at area. I know from doing math and from calculating area, this area of a square is base times height. My base and my height are the same because it's a square. So this is also 4 inches. My area here is going to be equal to 4 times 4, 16 inches squared. Here, I have 8. It's a square, so that's the same. So 8 times 8 is going to be 64 inches squared is my area for my big square. Take a look at those numbers. 64 is not twice of 16. It didn't work. Why didn't it work? I told you that they weren't proportional. Now let's see what kind of proportion do they have. So if I take 16 over 64, let's try to figure out what that ratio is. 16. Okay, let's take out an 8 from both of them. If I divide both by 8, I would have 2 over 8. I can keep going, 1 over 4. Notice that's different from these scale factors. For area, it's not proportional. It's not the same. For squares, it will always be in the proportion a quarter, 1/4, or 4. That means the area of this one needs to be multiplied by 4 to get that one. But again, because I don't want you to just memorize, oh, it's a quarter, just think about trying to find those side lengths and then find the area first. With perimeter, you're safe. You can jump straight there because it follows the same scale factor, the same proportion. Area doesn't work that way. So you need to find the side lengths and then find area using formulas on your reference sheet.